All right, time for another draftphysics.com, debatephysics.com also, but can't find a good debater, somebody to debate with, somebody credible, somebody with some sort of integrity, just not a conniving, lying, cheating creep. Yeah, some kind of better than the average human kind of thing. But anyway, can't find one of those yet, or lately, or ever. So it's a tough battle. These are really interesting subjects. It's really disappointing that people don't take any of it seriously. Clearly, the record, the evidence is all kinds of fog and mist in a lot of what physics claims. They make bold statements that no particle theory can do something, or no this can, or no other, most proven theory, and to not admit that this is hyperbole, that this is way in excess of a fair description of the evidence and the facts, the true facts, the real facts, the hard evidence. And there's really something here to debate, and it's not there's not nothing here to discuss, and just out of you think out of just interest in the solving and resolving of an image, the just it's like cleaning your glasses. It's almost like it's an instinct. You want to just make things clean and clear. Fixing things that are obviously defective or broken. A picture's crooked on the wall, you go fix it. Uh, you know, and the fact that there's just no interest in doing any of that fixing. There's just a bunch of obnoxious rhetoric and nonsense. So, I'll read some comments, but we'll do this a little bit first. So I was thinking I might as well write this up in some form. Now I have lost all capacity to have any patience with communicating in any kind of, fuck you is about all I got left. It's 5 or 6 words I can utter to people. So if somebody else has an interest in being literate and likes playing with words and likes writing a bunch of, useless and nonsensical crap to go around a sentence, a truth. I'd appreciate some help if somebody wants to offer any, because I really don't have any patience. And some of this, writing physics papers, it should be done a certain way. You got to do your abstract first and say your little statement about the fact that, yes, okay, so you think everything they believe is wrong. And and it's not really true, but yes, they've got all of the fundamental premises wrong. I mean, it is a particle universe. It is just a force and matter universe. There is no wooicles. There's no super. Things aren't in the same place at the same time. It's a push universe, and the force has all the push, and the matter is getting pushed, and it's pretty much that simple. But anyway, so I figured I would start with some idea. I start somewhere. So the Libnitzian axiom. Then this is why he believed what he believed. I mean, he actually believed that 4 pounds dropped 1 foot is the same energy as 1 pound dropped 4 feet. He believed it, and obviously it has some intuitive makes sense to it, but it doesn't go any further than that, because once you realize that the 4 foot drop is only a doubling of the velocity, and the 4 foot drop only takes twice the time. It doesn't take 4 times as much time to drop 4 feet. All of these things are kind of, glaring indications that, oh yeah, maybe there's a reason why it doesn't exactly work that way. And I would argue that there's a huge, intuitional logic to understanding the simple fact that Yeah, it is just twice the time because the object's starting to move faster and faster, and it's moving faster and faster through a field that has stuff in it, or it has a capacity to push that is constant. And obviously, if I'm moving through it and I'm changing how much of it I'm in, I'm going to be pushed less. You know, so it becomes as intuitive as realizing that you can defeat friction, by sliding on ice, and that you can, in fact, produce less weight on a surface by moving across it quickly. I mean, this simple intuition, the simple logic. Where the hell's my scale? Ah, here it is. That the faster I go across this scale, especially, obviously if I go this slow, it's not going to change my weight any, all right? I step on it, I'm going to weigh, it's going to stay a weight, and I can walk across, and I get to the other side, and, I'm going to weigh. But we're talking about going faster than the speed at which gravity is going to be able to do its 9.8 meters per second. So if I do it faster than that can happen, then I won't get the full 9.8 meters because I won't get the full second. So therefore I can't weigh my full weight. So the faster I go, once I get to a certain speed, I'll never weigh my weight. And I'll get lighter and lighter the faster I go across this surface. Now, that's not offensive as a description of reality. That shouldn't offend anyone. That shouldn't be, I've got to stop that awful, horrible idea from being perpetuated, that somehow, yes, the faster you go across that measuring device, the less the measuring device can collect of your weight, and you will, in fact, have put less pressure on the scale. I mean, just not, not that challenging. Anyway, so I start off with the Libnitzian axiom is the 4 pounds dropped 1 foot is the same energy as 1 pound dropped 4 feet, and it's false. The false theory is related to the formula is restated in the formula F equals mgh. So that's the formula they use for gravity. Now, it's just a fact that this formula only works when you place an object in a gravitational field, that is, it has no motion, and then let it go. It doesn't work for any other circumstance. So clearly, there's very few natural objects, except for ones ejected from the earth. So you could argue if there was a rock, an Old Faithful, and the rock got shot up, the rock would finally stop, and now MGH would tell you something. But it's still going to get you the wrong answer, because the fact is that 4 times the height isn't 4 times the velocity. And you need 4 times the velocity to have twice, the energy. You need 4 times the velocity to have twice the momentum or the energy. So the correct formula is F equals mgt. Time works in all circumstances. So in the circumstance where you have a meteor flying into the Earth, you can use mgt, and it'll tell you how much extra energy you'll collect from the Earth's gravity. So you'll have a certain amount of energy at 3 miles away from the Earth, and mgt will tell you how much added energy gravity will give you. So it'll work. You can't use mgh in that circumstance because the object has velocity coming in, and mgh won't work. So they admit it won't work. It won't work with this. Okay, you're going to fly by a planet. You can't use mgh because you keep changing how much gravity you're in, and so it fails. mgt again works. So clearly, by inference that it works in more circumstances, that's a pretty good argument that mgt is the correct formulation. All right, and gravity is a time-dependent force. Now, there shouldn't even be an argument about this. It's doing the inverse square law. It behaves fundamentally the same way as a photon. Light off a light bulb is essentially doing the same thing in reverse. So you just reverse the photons, going, instead of a divergence of photons, a convergence of photons, and that would represent pretty much exactly what gravity is. It represents the inverse square law. That is, you're compressing the force in 2 dimensions. That's the reason for the square. And the fact is that that diagram will produce the fact that you have field strengths at these different locations, that twice the distance will be 4 times the force. That is now getting closer to a surface. So it all fits. And, it shouldn't offend anyone to suggest that, yes, clearly gravity is a time-dependent force, that the distance is only indirectly a byproduct of the fact of the time dependence. So anyway, the false axiom has never been tested by credible experiment. So the fact is we're sitting here hundreds of years later from when this was stated as a truth, and we don't have any sources or references to any credible experiment doing that simple thing of measuring the impact force of 4 pounds dropped 1 foot and 1 pound dropped 4 feet. We have no evidence. NASA didn't do it. None of the laboratories did it. None of even these free energy nuts have even got the experiment. Nobody's done it. And nobody's done it with really great technology. No one. And that should say to some of you, isn't that bizarre? That such a fundamental axiom has never been demonstrated with an experiment. All right. The axiom can be restated as a 1 mass going 2 units of velocity is the same energy as a 4 mass going 1 unit of velocity. So this is just stating what we obviously already do know, that has been measured. That you drop something 4 times the distance, it increases its velocity twice, not 4 times. So it's going twice the velocity, 4 times the distance. So anytime you increase the distance by a multiple of 4, you will increase and double the velocity. And so we know that's all we're really talking about. So now it doesn't matter whether we're moving the objects horizontally or we're moving them vertically. It's not a gravity equation, it's a motion equation. And it's basically just saying that, yes, dropping things in gravity is a way to give things momentum. But you can give momentum to things in other ways. I can create something going twice the velocity in lots of different ways. I don't have to use gravity to create exactly the same object with energy, the same motion in the object. So whether the motion's down or the motion's this way, it doesn't matter. So it's basically a reassertion that gravity just creates momentum. It gives objects momentum. It's not any more complicated than that. All right. The axiom is proven incorrect by decisive experimental evidence. All right, so yeah, I put that in bold because, yes, that's, it's just a fact, okay, that the lever balance, using a suspended lever, what would be called, I don't know what they're exactly called, but a balance that relies on, distance from fulcrum, clearly demonstrates that a 1 mass traveling 4 units of velocity is the same force and energy as a 4 mass traveling 1 velocity. So the lever perfectly, all right, demonstrates it. And as I've pointed out, no one will, no one can, no one has provided any counter argument to the diagram, okay, of that function. And there's just no counter argument to what the lever is demonstrating. So the idea is you suspend a lever from the top, and anytime it tips, all you're really going to be doing is changing where this weight is. So when it tips one way, a little extra weight goes on this side. When it tips the other way, the extra weight goes on this side. And now whatever objects you place on this lever, the fact is they can balance each other. So I did it with a 4 mass, 1 distance, and a 1 mass, 4 distances. All right. And it perfectly balances. And that's basically telling you, okay, did this in this diagram, this is 4 times the velocity out here. So this is a 1 unit of, let's say it was a sail in a wind. This is 1 unit of sail, and it's going in a 4 units of wind. And then over here you have 4 units of sail, okay, in a 1 unit wind. And it's another way of making the comparison, that would be true also. So if I just made these into boats, the same thing would be true. Okay, the boat with the 4 times the size sail, all right, in a 10-mile-an-hour wind is going to have the same energy, if the same boat, and everything you still has the same weight. And if I put a 1 unit of sail in a 40-mile-an-hour wind, right, I'm going to have the same energy, the same output of capacity to do work. And so anyways, don't really want to confuse it with different analogies, but there's lots of analogies you can use. But the simple truth is that you can sort of understand that this is 4 units, okay, moving slowly, and when it's going up, okay, it's 4 things going against the gravity slowly. So it's going into the rain. And on the other side, there's 1 unit escaping the rain at 4 times the speed. And that the amount of rain that has changed is exactly the same for both objects. This one missed, say, 50 drops of rain. This one hit an extra 50 drops of rain. So if it was water, that it was, a force falling, that would be true. One side would collide with 50 extra, the other side would miss 50 extra. And so these two things are basically, that, like I said, the evidence is clear that the equality is 1 mass at 4 times the velocity, or 1 mass at 2 times the velocity, right? A 1 mass at 2v, okay, won't balance on the lever. It'll decisively fail, and the lever will swing down, indicating not a balance, not an equality. Yeah, it's probably enough, but no one's going to, there's nothing stated in there that's inaccurate. And this balance is a clear and decisive proof that a 1 mass going 4 times the velocity is the same as a 4 mass going 1 velocity. It's a very hard piece of evidence, and it requires a serious debunk, not mush, not garbage rhetoric. Okay. Rotating a wheel in either the vertical or horizontal configuration provides confirming evidence. All right, now that, I shouldn't even have to really explain that. But you can understand, because it's just the lever, again, hidden inside of a wheel. So you can do the same experiment, essentially, by just, having a spinning disc, or wheel, however, in a horizontal or vertical condition. And you're just saying you're going to do the same experiment. You're going to put the 4 mass here, and you're going to put the 1 mass out here. And they do have to be exactly in the same plane, in alignment. And then you can spin this disc, and this is balanced. And there's no difference as far as the spinning of the wheel is concerned, the balance of the wheel between the one mass going 4 times the velocity and the 4 mass going 1 velocity. So, it just basically verifies the point that they're equalities, they're equal things. And you could put the 2 mass here at twice the velocity, and that would be the same as the 4 mass at 1 velocity. All right. Probably there's something else I wanted to say about disk spinning, but the point is it verifies the lever, confirms the statement the lever makes. Okay. Misunderstanding the true physics of energy, which this is really a conversation about. And again, it was a real controversy. So for at least 150 years, people actually did argue this. I mean, there were people who were quite convinced that energy is just momentum, and then other people quite convinced that it's 1/2 mv squared that is conserved, that is the real energy. And it's and the controversy wasn't resolved. It was just pretended that it didn't exist. Just as they pretend there's no distinction between wave particle, like somehow the two theories are compatible. That somehow you can just say, well, on one day we'll believe it's particles, and then the next day we'll just believe it's waves, and everything is just fine. And it's not just fine, because as I pointed out, anytime you exchange the energy between two objects that have a different mass, anytime I try to take the energy from this object and put it into this object of a different mass, I end up, breaking conservation. I can't conserve both the momentum and the kinetic energy. So it becomes obvious that the two theories aren't compatible. Alright, so misunderstanding the true physics of energy is catastrophically destructive to the development of accurate and coherent physical theory. So that doesn't sound quite right. I guess I have to have theory regarding physical functions, something like that. Errors in the foundation compound into more errors. So the truth is yes, this fake axiom led to this phony formula, F equals mgh thing, and the 1/2 mv squared, which was just a perversion of Newton's statement, okay, that force equals momentum. So he stated it as force equals the change in your momentum. So you want to know how much force you added to a system, it would be the change in the momentum. But it's just force, and he said it clearly. You want to go twice as fast, you double the force. You want to go 3 times as fast, you triple the force. He said nothing about, quadrupling the force. He said nothing about that indicating he believed you needed 4 times the force to go twice as fast, or that you needed 9 times the force to go 3 times as fast. Clearly, that's not what he believed. So obviously the net force would take place in a net amount of time, so you wouldn't bother dividing by time, because time would be 1 unit, the full unit of time of the net application of the force. So the net force is the total net change in the momentum. That's clearly what Newton believed. All right, gravity imposes momentum at a rate. That's the truth of it, okay? Of 9.8 meters of velocity per 1 second interval. So there's no other formula. It's not 9.8 meters of velocity per any number of seconds. It's per exactly 1 second of exposure. 1 second of exposure at a certain position in the gravitational field produces 9.8 meters. If you move your position, you get a different number. And if you stay in the gravity longer than that 1 second, you have a different number. It's in 1 second how much rain or how much gravity affects you. That's what it's a measure of, the rate at which gravity affects you. All right, and so there is no mv squared here. There's no F equals m. There's no F equals MA, where they've converted the A into some sort of meters per second, or meters per second squared. There's no seconds squared. There's 1 second. It's 9.8 meters per every 1 second. If it was a half second, then it would be 4.9 meters. If it was 2 seconds, then it would be 18.9, right? 19.9. 19.6. Okay, sorry. So, shouldn't even have to argue this. I mean, it's just a fact. And you're just saying, okay, so I have to actually force an editor somewhere to tell me that it's some other number. It's 9.8 meters of velocity per 1 second. It is not 9.8 meters of velocity per seconds squared. There's no seconds and there's no squared. There's just 1 second. 9.8 meters every 1 second of exposure to the gravity. That's what Galileo proved, and that's what the truth is. All right. So just as a, this is just add-on stuff that I don't know exactly where to place it, but it'll be the continuing argument because this implicates everything. Everything in physics is destroyed by this 1/2 mv squared. It has tainted and perverted everything. And it tainted and perverted the way they measured the weight of an electron. Now, I'm not sure how they measured the weight of protons. So that will be the interesting. I have to find that experiment. But they measured the weight of electrons by moving them through a magnetic field. And they applied 1/2 mv squared as the formula. So by applying 1/2 mv squared to the velocity, they greatly reduced the mass because the velocity number was so high, because of the squared function. The percentage of the energy derived through velocity was greatly exaggerated. Therefore, the mass number had to be very small. So if that didn't happen, if electrons had the same weight as protons, and they actually measured electron weight wrong, what would our atomic mass be, and would it equal our actual physical mass? So that's the funny part, is I believe, it is something like 2,000 times to light. Your total number, when you add up the mass of your electrons and your protons, they are way short, of being your total mass. And you can sort of understand that, well, shouldn't they? Shouldn't the total mass of electrons and protons be our mass? I mean, that's all we're made out of, right? That's all the atoms are made out of is electrons and protons. So I'd be curious if somebody knows how to fix that calculation and just change the weight of the electron to be the same as the weight of the proton, and then see what our atomic mass would be and whether it would equal our actual physical weighable mass. Alright, so that seems like enough of that, and so we'll read some crappy comments. So anyway, I'll leave a link below to this page, and we'll see if I can develop it, and anyone who wishes to rewrite it and rephrase it, but just making these simple points that there's no evidence, and there are experiments that are in fact counter evidence that prove the opposite to be true, and the balance basically debunks any idea that 4 pounds dropped 1 foot is the same as 1 pound dropped 4 feet. Alright, so comments. Yeah, there we are. Alright, so let's start here. The Gibbon guy. You say that physics has not done the experiments. It's just a fact. I mean, why are we, what's the argument here? I mean, I can talk about every single one of these simple experiments. I mean, the tug of war between the 10 mass object going 5 and the 5 mass object going 10. They haven't even done that. So what you know, but that's just ridiculous. So again, you're ridiculous. There's no point in having a conversation with you, but you're just so fucking dishonest. There are every single one of these physical experiments has not been done. They haven't precisely measured anything. They haven't even measured the temperature of a ballistic pendulum, for fuck's sake. And so how can you possibly defend the fact that they have done these experiments when they haven't? They didn't repeat the Eddington experiment from space. There's 400 times better resolution. You don't need an eclipse. It only takes 5 minutes, and you can use a mediocre telescope from space. And they haven't repeated it. And you type this rubbish. And I'm supposed to take you seriously? I mean, I can't take you seriously. How big a lying sack of complete garbage can you possibly be to sit there and defend the absence of experimental verification for anything? All right. During the time when the topic was still controversial, and so let's understand, that's when they did the clay experiments, where they dented clay with round objects. Okay? A theoretically stupid way to measure energy. It's like saying, I'm going to measure how much energy an arrow has. And one arrow I'm going to smash into the dirt until it has a very dull point. And the other arrow I'm going to sharpen the point as pointy as possible. And then I'm going to say, well, because the arrow with the sharper point penetrated further, it had more energy. Even though I shot them from the same bow and they weighed the same, I'll claim it has more energy merely because it penetrated further. You can't understand how that's really retarded physics? I mean, it's really so stupid that it should just be called little yellow bus physics, right? They bang things together. Yeah, and even Newton claims, it's all kind of messy and sloppy because they don't have any high-speed cameras. They don't have any of that crap. So, yeah, they did the best they could. But let's not pretend they were great experiments. All right, measured what happened to the velocity. So again, where's your? Show me the documentation. Show me these perfect experiments you're talking about. I've shown clearly that Professor Lewin, even an MIT professor, did an experiment that was. You can only. I mean, if we're going to say he was innocent and it was just an accident, it's still just sloppy as hell, right? He's got a blob of clay smeared on an air cart. Come on. Right, they saw how momentum was conserved. So again, you're saying this nonsense, and that's all it is. It's nonsense. I'm saying that, no, let's do the experiment clean. That's why I suggested pendulums to do this increase in momentum experiment, right? I mean, the very idea that you are comfortable with the idea that you can create more momentum in a direction, that regardless of what happens is a reflection. The fact is I have 100 momentums going this way. And who cares what's going that way? I have 100 going this way. And you're saying it is possible I can convert that 100 going this way into 150 going this way. You actually think I can convert it into 200 going this way. For free. And you're going to argue with me and call me ridiculous or something? I mean, fuck you. Right. Do you really think people like Newton were not able to measure things like that reliably enough? You want me to quote Newton? He did the best he could. Okay, he had gigantic pendulums, 12 feet. He did all he could to make them as accurate as possible. But you can see, he doesn't have any stopwatches. What the fuck? They didn't have electric light. Fuck you. Even though all the results agreed. So where's the truth? All the results agreed. Clearly Newton didn't believe your theory, okay? Twice the force, twice the velocity. 3 times the force, 3 times the velocity. It's the sentence right under the second law. It's the first sentence describing the second law. Fuck. You can't understand. If it's the first sentence after the second law, it's a pretty straightforward definition of what he says happens. He didn't say 9 times the force, 3 times the velocity. He didn't say that. Okay. There's a big difference between your momentum conservation and the real momentum conservation. So yes, there's a big difference between my straight, logical, fair description of reality and your dopey, okay, cheaty, false, fake, and phony. Your lies about the historical record, your lies about what Newton believed, your lies about what experiments have taken place. These days, even better experiments are done in schools and universities all the time. So, where's your evidence? We've seen a whole bunch of experiments. Now, I'm gonna argue right from the start, every one of these experiments done with one of these kits, Scientific America kind of kits, is probably shit. Because why would they make these low friction carts with heavy metal wheels? Oh, that's right, because it hides linear momentum. Why are you doing linear momentum experiments with carts that store energy as angular rotation of the wheels? Obviously, every time the cart goes slower, it has less energy in the wheels. And every time it goes fast, it stores a lot more energy in the wheels. Now, again, any idiot, any 5th grader could understand that concept. I could draw it on a board and explain to them angular rotation and how it takes real energy, okay, to rotate a wheel, and that energy isn't linear, it's circular. Yeah. All right. So it's not going to be seen in your linear momentum. It's a bunch of weight going up and down, forward and back. And that motion isn't in your linear motion. So all the cart experiments are garbage. And then I've explained how air carts have a fundamental flaw. And that is, every time you collide two things, you can have some expectation that they might lift up. And if they lift up, air escapes and essentially provides more momentum, more energy into the system. Clearly, it's pretty easy to enter more energy into an air cart system. Not hard to understand at all. All right. Okay, like the ones by Walter Lewin you have seen, and I demonstrated it. So when he wasn't trying to fake the experiment, that is, when he was trying to do the one mass bang into two mass and they go off together, they were supposed to stick together. When he did that experiment without a spring, and so it's just purely elastic, it's not super elastic, and the one cart hits the two mass and it didn't stick, well, then the two mass left with less than half the velocity, and the one mass reflected with this tiny amount of energy. So the fact is that when they weren't trying to force the results, the experiment came out my way, not your way. All right, you say you demonstrated how Lewin cheated with the weights. Well, I'm just saying it's there. You want to make a counter argument, then make it. I showed the two fucking carts, right? One of them is twice as long as the other one. Now, one of them has 2 springs on it. The one that's supposed to weigh twice as much only has 2 springs. It's supposed to have 4 springs, right? I mean, it's supposed to have 4 things to represent 2 springs, right? It's supposed to have 4 times the weight. The one over here has 1 metal lead weight on it. The one over here has 1 metal lead weight. You don't understand. See, how could it be double the mass if it's exactly the same amount of extra mass? So, I mean, you're not making a counter argument. But your demonstration was just as silly. Well, I'm just gonna block you. Okay, it wasn't silly. You don't have a counter argument. They're clear, reasoned, rational statements. It's observable right there in front of you. The small cart had clay on it. probably on both sides. The one that's supposed to weigh twice as much had no clay. So not only did it have not twice as much clay, which it needed to have, it didn't have any. So fuck you. Okay. You assume the weights were wrong because you didn't like the results. So, just more bullshit. I can say the same thing to you. All right? So when the experiments don't come out the way you want them to. So it's just bullshit. But you think these are quality enough experiments. You would stake your kid's life on the quality of these experiments. I wouldn't stake a goldfish's life on it. So you have great trust in these people who are trying to prove a point. Right? They're trying to get a result. You trust them. Well, you're a fool and a dupe. And you'll be proven to be just that. And you're a pusher of bullshit. There's good reason for you to doubt that this theory has any credibility at all. And you're not obeying that good reason. You're ignoring that good reason just to be an obnoxious piece of suck. All right. You just had zero evidence about the real weights. Yeah, we had zero evidence. You have zero evidence. He didn't weigh them in front of anyone. Okay? Fact. And the fact is that there's no rational way the cart could weigh twice as much. Just looking at it, it doesn't have enough attachments to be twice as much. In fact, what you are saying is there is a huge number of physicists and engineers around the world who know the controversial theory is wrong. No, where did I say that? They obviously don't know it. They're ignorant, stupid dupes just like you. They're religious kooks, okay? They're wooists. They're not scientists. They keep looking for bullshit. They don't keep looking for the truth. The very fact that none of them have ever uttered the words, why haven't they done the Eddington experiment from space? One of the most critical, highly publicized experiments in the history of physics. Never successfully repeated from Earth beyond the margin of error. And they didn't do it from space. 400 times better resolution. You don't need an eclipse. It takes 5 fucking minutes. And you don't even need a good camera. And they've never even tried it. Now, the very fact that none of your physicists have ever uttered those words and said, gee, that is really curious. Why the fuck wouldn't you shore that up? Why wouldn't you show everybody the pictures of light being bent twice as much as anything else in the universe? Heavy electrons, protons. No, they're not bent much at all by gravity compared to light. Twice as much bending. The smallest, most discrete thing in the universe, we are supposed to believe, isn't only, yes, it is bent by gravity. Unlike any other force, somehow the force of gravity can bend light. Nothing else can. No other force can. Magnets can't do it. Nothing else can do it. But bingo, gravity can. And it's twice as much. And you just believe it. Why do you believe it? Where have you seen any real evidence that's true? Why do you believe the Eddington experiment even? When the guy said in his own journal he got 1/10 the data quality. 1/10. His exact words were, I was expecting 10,000 stars per slide and I only got 1,000. Those are his own fucking words. He says in his own journal, I wouldn't stake my life on these results. It's a known fact that everything that could go wrong went wrong. It rained, there was clouds, storms, the whole thing. It was raining 5 minutes before the eclipse. These are absolute facts. And you trust that experiment. It was raining 5 fucking minutes before the eclipse. And you think it's the greatest proven experiment in the history of mankind. Fuck you do. Okay, none of them. And again, this is all about you actually believe it takes 25 times the fuel to spin a motor 5 times as fast. You actually believe that. I don't even think Leibniz did. Because I don't think he even thought that far ahead. I don't even think he thought about the implications of what he was saying. None of them is interested in revolutionizing physics. They're not interested in the truth, and that's the fact of it is, and they're not interested in science. They're interested in religion and pursuing their faith, their fable, their desire that the unicorn universe is real, the wooey spiritual something or other is real. They're just chasing butterflies. They're not chasing the fucking truth. If they cared about the truth, they would have noticed all these goddamn defects in the physics they're preaching. All right, interested in revolutionizing physics, money, fame, etc. Come on. You don't get any of those things if you disagree with anything the professors say. So let's just go back to electric boom. Electric boom pointed out to Professor Lewin that he probably made a kind of trivial mistake when he, proposes that there's two velocities in the same location. And he points out kind of obviously that you can't measure an inductor. There's no way to probe an inductor. Okay, you can't do it because your probe is going to be in the induction. So there's no way to escape the fact that your probes are going to mismeasure because they have to travel through the induction field to get to the measurement point. So there's just no point in having a conversation about the voltages there, but you can't measure them, but you can't probe the experiment. A perfectly rational statement. He got called a flat earther, got insulted in any ways possible by the professor, because the professor can't be wrong. And that's all you're defending. You're defending ignorance and arrogance, and that's it. And that's what the truth is. The truth is if you tested 100 physicists, physics graduates, and you tested them on who Leibniz was, what his theory was, de Chardolay, all of those details, they would know none of them. They would fail the test. I'm saying that 90% of them would not accurately describe the history. All right, so fuck you. Yeah, I'll delete this comment. I'll give you one more chance and that'll be it. But I won't be lied about. I've made perfectly reasonable arguments explaining why Lewin's experiment is impossible, essentially. It can't make logical sense. Now, you want to say it can make logical sense that cart was twice as heavy? Then explain how it could have been twice as heavy. Just explain. Tell me that, no, it's a different kind of aluminum. So it's not, this aluminum weighs a lot more, it's a lot more dense than that aluminum was. Make some sort of argument, but don't say it's not an argument, because it is an argument. It's so obvious. It's so visually obvious. Fucking liar. All right. So some idiot says, where's what the fuck? Wrong channel, moron. All right. A video full of good vibes. Well, that's pretty useless. Let's see. On one side of physics, we have rockets, lasers, and civilization. So I don't even understand how physics relates to civilization, but whatever. On the side of Aristotelian Elmer's glue eating physics, we have Rocky Dennis and his tip-tapping crayon drawings. So this is the courage, these, people who don't have any credibility. They're afraid to sign their critique. So they're so cowardly, they're so afraid that they're going to be wrong and provably wrong that they won't even sign any of this. Okay? They can't show who they are in any way, make any kind of, You know what I mean. You don't have to give everybody your name and address. You don't even have to be in a video. But you just have to be sure that, yes, if it need be, we can find out who you are. If you're going to say shit like that, right? But these are such cowards. So this is the best they can do. I mean, the argument really isn't that complicated. Momentum versus mv squared. All you have to do is show the 8-pound bowling ball going twice as fast, knocking down twice as many pins. What's the big deal? Why is that such a hard thing to do? You people are just so lame. Alright, so it says 30-40. Nope. LOL. It's just a pendulum with more rotational inertia. So it rocks back and forth slowly. That's not what a balance is, but regardless, let's say that's true. It's a pendulum with uneven masses on both sides. So that's a critical difference, and that's entirely the difference when it comes to the formula 1/2 mv squared. Are you too stupid to realize that if you change the masses and the velocity, that the squared function means the two things aren't going to have the same value anymore? The squared function means the velocity changes, the total energy changes. So it's not a pendulum where I have the same thing on this side as on this side. It's a pendulum where I have twice as much kinetic energy on this side as I have on this side. That's a critical difference, retard. Okay. It's called a physical pendulum. What's this? Physical pendulum. It's the silliest concept I've ever heard. Is there something, a non-physical pendulum? And the equations, what equation? What goes up comes down? There's no equation. It's just preposterous. For that already exists. There's no equation beyond the law of the lever. That's the equation. All right, and the point is the law of the lever is basically a debunk of mv squared. Okay, the fact is the law of the lever is basically stating that momentum rules and there is no kinetic energy. There's no sign of kinetic energy in the law of the lever. It doesn't exist. All right, and has been tested to death 100,000 times. So you can't link to any one of those tests. So show me where they have something with, a one mass with twice the velocity doing the same work as a 4 mass at one velocity. Show me that you've done 100,000 times. Well, show me. Link me to it. Show me. Oh, what fucking assholes. Alright. Speed equals momentum equals weight. Speed doesn't equal momentum. Okay, so that's wrong. Momentum does equal weight. Does equal energy. Obviously, mass, no. Power, yes. Work, yes. Force, yes. All those things are the same. Distance, no. Irrelevant. Torque, yes. Hyperboloid. Why that would be in there, I have no idea. Give me a Nobel Prize. Oh, that, baby talk symbols. Whatever. Get what you deserve. Die quickly. I mean, soon. But very slowly and very horribly. It's what you deserve. Fact. Okay. Alright. So, enough of that. So again, if there's anyone who has any courage, they want to defend regular physics and explain why the Eddington experiment hasn't been attempted from space, not even attempted, and they want to explain why physics has never dropped 4 pounds 1 foot and 1 pound 4 feet to see how much energy they have. If they want to defend any of this crap physics, why they've never put a thermometer in a ballistic pendulum, please email me and we can have a conversation and you can explain why it's really great physics to not do any experiments. Why that's the best science is the science that does no experiments. All right. So, but Just so depressing to be on a planet of such lying scum. Very, very depressing. Alright, so enough of a video. So till the next time and such and so forth. And